Here is the WSN News on the Hour. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 5 malaria cases reported in South Trinidad. No bail for man accused of beheading Superior woman. Bandits attack near Pier 1, Chaguaramas, 4 robbed. Internationally, U.S. stocks plunge minutes into trading day as tariffs slam global markets. Now for the details. The Ministry of Health says it is currently investigating a cluster of malaria cases in South Trinidad. As of April 2nd, 2025, 5 cases have been confirmed, including the primary source, which brings the total number of cases for 2025 to 5, as there were no other confirmed cases for 2025, the ministry said in a release Wednesday. The release noted that Trinidad and Tobago is not endemic for malaria, and as such, the majority of cases confirmed each year are imported and/or introduced. Over the period of 2015 to 2024, there have been 153 confirmed cases, which is an average of 15 cases per year. The release report 5 cases are in a well-defined geographic area, and the following field work has been conducted by the Insect Vector Control Division after the identification of the first case on March 27th. 2 bandits robbed 4 people of thousands of dollars worth of cell phones and cash early Wednesday morning near Pier 1, Chaguaramas. The 4 victims reported to Carenage police that around 2 a.m. they were walking west along the Western Main Road, Carenage, when they passed 2 men who were sitting just off a pathway. As they continued walking, one of the men walked in front of them, withdrew a gun, and announced a robbery. The 2 then ordered the 4 to lie on the ground, following which they began to rob them of their possessions. 3 of the victims were robbed of their iPhone cell phone, which altogether were valued at $21,000, while one of the victims had his wallet containing $1,500 TT plus $150 US. The bandits, after robbing the 4, fled the scene on foot while the victims made their way to the Carenage police station, where they made the report. The 44-year-old unemployed man charged with the murder of Joan Eastick, whose head was found in a cooler in Superior last month, has faced a master in the High Court on April 2nd. Michael Jr. Randy Edwards, also known as Eddie, appeared virtually in South Court A. The master denied him bail and remanded him into police custody. A status hearing was set for October 6th. Internationally, U.S. stocks plunged at the opening bell Thursday after President Donald Trump rocked global markets by announcing tariffs on almost all imports into the country. The S&P 500 tumbled more than 4%, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 3.7% or 1,700 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq sold off by nearly 5%. Those market swings wiped out trillions of dollars of value in the first few minutes of trading. Retail stocks were among some of the hardest hit as Trump's tariffs on major manufacturing and exporting nations, such as China, could reach as high as 54%. Lululemon plummeted 10%, Nike dropped 11%, and Ralph Lauren declined around 11.5%. Small businesses are also set to be hit hard by the tariffs. The Russell 2000 index, which makes up the smaller publicly traded companies, was down 4%. It has now lost nearly 20% since its peak in November. Well, that's the news on the Hour on WESN. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Well, hello everyone. It's always good to see you. This is Andy Johnson. This is 10 questions on this edition here on WESN. We thank you for staying with us. Well, let's tell you something. A pledge to patriotism. That was the headline on a short letter to the editor carried in the Guardian newspaper just days ago. Let's just tell you what it says. Without a doubt, Prime Minister Stuart Young SC will receive suggestions as prospective priorities accompanied by greetings and expressions of best wishes. The Patriotic Organization of Trinbago joins to extend ours. At this stage, we feel certain that congratulations can be seen as premature and better reserved for after performance has been seen and assessed. The organization was formed in 2015 in response to the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley's call for volunteers versus gimme gimme upon his assumption as our Prime Minister. We do look forward to our continued collaboration with state and corporate citizens as we seek to promote and develop patriotism. Among our plans are the hosting of a songwriters workshop and extending our initial patriotic song contest to the entire region. Imagine what a Caribbean patriotic song competition can do to bring the region together. Welcome, Prime Minister, as we pledge our delight to play a part in the development of patriotism. The letter is signed by 3 persons. Mr. Lennox Serju Singh, he's the coordinator, Junior Howell as a director, and Gloria Sargent as secretary. Well, we have on this edition of the program, the illustrious Mr. Lennox Serju Singh. Good to have you, sir.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about what in your idea is patriotism?
Patriotism to me is a commitment to the country beyond being fanatical, beyond being that my country right or wrong. A question to me is you're a patriot when you seriously consider and assess and question things going on in your country towards improving the country. And that to me is, it's not clear that because we are footballers, we must all support. If we see something wrong in football, we see it. Something wrong in education, we see it. We see something wrong that we can help, not only to criticize, but also to make suggestions where possible and do things that will help to build that love of the country.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 things there. And in our discussion just before we came on, and where I have seen references to you over the years, you have played a role in a number of different kinds of organizations in Trinidad and Tobago. And those 2 are just 2 of them in football and football administration and in education. Yeah. You've been involved in other spheres of activity in the country, right?
Well, my involvement in football, I've always loved sports. And sports has done so much for me. And I have this feeling that I have an obligation to put back from where I came, you know. And I gained a lot from football. It had helped me a lot in my administration as a principal in education. It has also exposed me to situations that I was able to draw on as time go on. So that part of, in addition to which, of course, is that you, more so as a referee, we had 24 years service, 14 on the FIFA panel. I gained so much experiences that, as I say, I could fall back on and utilize. So I wasn't too much involved in theory. I was always been be practical. And many situations that arose helped me. Beyond football and education, I, on retirement, worked with the energy industry, energy sector, as a marketing manager of the then Southern Construction Company. And again, I was able here to bring expertise from the 2 fields into there and see and look at what is happening, for example, in the South Trinidad Chamber of Industry and Commerce. That led me, when I got there, to see the shortfall of local content. We finally went on a trade mission to West Africa, and we saw there, in Nigeria, the Petroleum Club. I said, but wait, we have all more than 101 years, and we don't have a petroleum club, so we could form one when we get back. We ran into problems with the name because it's a Petroleum Women's Club. You see how important women are? So, in brainstorming, we said, well, wait, we are all complaining about the energy sector and local content. And therefore, we should try and do some, and we formed the...
So you said there was a Petroleum Women's Club?
Yeah. They were based in Shell Savannah Club there. And because we couldn't get the Petroleum Association. a Petroleum Women's Association, you can get a Petroleum Association.
And who formed that? Who were the members of, and why a Petroleum Women's Club?
There could be, I think at times, our naming of things could be so demanding. Sometimes if it's a letters difference, but big difference like forming a petroleum club against a petroleum women's club. I mean, there's a big difference. We can, and you know, but that was the name wasn't approved by the legal.
Yeah, and that was women who worked in the petroleum industry, or the wives of petroleum executives who were invariably men.
All I know of them, they were sort of social club. You know, the wives of the petrol people in the energy industry. But I'm not too sure about that. But that basically, at the end of the day, we formed the local content chamber.
Okay.
And that is where the local content trust was being pushed. There's a long story about that because we ran into problems facing the authorities that be the international oil companies and who are members also of the energy chamber. And you know, they were able to outdo us very easily, and to the extent that we have been disestablished because just recently, let me just mention, this week, I saw a call by the Contractors Association. I think they call them JCC, Joint Contractors, Construction Contractors.
Yes.
Fazil Khan, I think, is the author, saying that they are looking for more local content. And they are checking the procurement regulation and all the clauses that deal with local content and what should have. And I said, Fazil, where were you all? Where were you all? I remember former minister, the late Franklin Khan, asking me, what is happening in the local content chamber? I said, let me tell you what he's suffering from. These people are prepared to sit on the fence, have us stick our neck out, get killed, and when they get the benefit, they are not a part of it.
But why do you think that is? Because in some cases, a lot of people who get involved sometimes get stigmatized, or sometimes, you know, get sort of...
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think it's a question of, this might be a little harsh, but it's a bit of character, as I see it. You know, and let me stay quiet. When the law comes, we called in 2012 for 2013 to be declared the year of local content legislation. We actually got a draft in 2014, which wasn't too bad given the kind of parameters and the different, inclusive of meeting with the Ministry of Planning and so on. And we started the procurement act, and that is in force now. It took a while, and back and forth and so on. And that was the first call. Today I am seeing JCC saying, we want more local. I don't want to go into the law as I see it, but the procurement gives, first of all, we give them a definition of local content. There's a sort of policy, hope, expectation that there will be consideration a little bit given to local contractors, because the benefit of that, even though your price might be a little bit higher, you should give the local contract or consider them. Of course, you know, every contract will say, we do not bind ourselves to the highest or any bidder.
Yeah.
And therefore the client is free to choose or not choose. But even then, one fantastic case that I see it, the biggest project this country has ever taken is the construction of the now Archibald de Leon Highway that was called the Point Fortin Highway.
Yeah.
The Point Fortin Highway was $7 billion. One package. Who in Trinidad and Tobago could foot something like that? $7 billion. It was given to a Brazilian firm. We know the history now of their being bankrupt and what have you, and so or wherever they fell. And the president, the contract was changed into 6 packages, of which local contractors won 5, because it was within their scope and their capacity and their capability and their experience, and which is what all things that they consider. So even then, we heard not a word from the Contractors Association. So we have got to look at local content and looking at the patriotism aspect, if we want to stick on the topic, of developing capacity and not developing sustainable development of capacity.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to make this question fit with the topic we're talking about, patriotism. That was just one of a million projects, you could say, that have taken place, let's say, over the last 3-4 decades, in which there has always been some controversy about corruption and...
Well, there will be, and of course, but we do not at all condone corruption. We had, as a chamber, we told our members, anybody we find corruption, we support integrity, and integrity not conveniently, So we have had that question of corruption. We know how far it goes back, But the start of our patriotic organization.
Yeah, I wanted to come to that. How and why was the organization formed? And what led to the establishment of the patriotic organization?
The patriotism aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as I said, in 2015, when Dr. Rowley became Prime Minister, it was one of his very first addresses. He called for, quote, volunteers versus the gimme, unquote.
Yeah.
In responding to that, I mentioned quite a few things. The one that caught his eye was that I of the opinion that we do not duly recognize and appreciate our sovereignty, starting with independence. It was a fantastic time in life to be living in the decades of the 1960s, to be of the age where you would have finished or just about finishing college and so on, and you could think and you could compare and contrast. And having studied at college level the history of the British Empire and Commonwealth, I was able to buy into why independence is so important. Beyond that, of course, we went to become Republican to make it absolute. And Dr. Rowley referred that to the Ministry of Education because the curriculum has patriotism. I met within 2 weeks with a delegation from the Director of School Supervision Office. We spoke, we had a second meeting, and we said, okay, since this is our thing, your schools, let us aim at a patriotic song competition for schools. So we don't go and advertise and look out for that. We did it. Amazingly, a 7-year-old primary school child won the competition, beating university students and everybody. And we are hoping to develop further. It was necessary to form an organization because if I go as an individual to somebody and say, hey, I have a competition, I want you to give me $20,000, that's not right.
Yeah.
So you give it to a duly recognized, accountable company or organization. So we came into that legal aspect, and from that, the pandemic, of course, came in in 2020 we were hoping, but then just then the pandemic came in 21, 22, and even 23, we have not been too much back into it. Inclusive of what is that corporate sponsorship and so on is not as forthcoming as we would have anticipated. Yeah.
It's hard to come by. So is that not even a sense of where we are on the whole notion of patriotism, that we can't get that kind of support to kick it off going, to get it going fully, that maybe people are cynical about the idea of patriotism?
Yeah. Well, I also said, it's the patriotism, if we narrow it down to Trinidad and Tobago, but we must also look, as far as I'm concerned, as seeing the region as one country. And I also have a tremendous support for the Caribbean, for the region, CARICOM and what have you. Yeah. I was very happy when I saw the ministry named the Ministry of External and CARICOM Affairs. So it's both, And,
but in a sense, don't we have to get our stuff together? I was going to use another term there instead of stuff, which starts with an F. Yeah. But don't you think we have to get our stuff together first before we can want to open the umbrella for everybody? Because there's a debate as to the extent to which our athletes go abroad and do well. Sometimes our entertainers, our cultural personalities, different kinds of people do well, and we celebrate that. But outside of that, there are laments about the extent to which a lot of us are committed to the continued growth and development of our society. Yeah.
He said, I'm very happy to see any attempt to integrate us as much as possible. And I remember very well, it was at Hyatt last year or year before that we had a CARICOM summit on education, among other things. And today we are hearing, as a follow-up, the question of the diversification of the curriculum. And I happen to be in a position to understand what was happening, that we need to first of all, redefine academia. Mm-hmm. Right now it's confined to maths, science, language, literature, social studies, engineering. I wish I had that, skill.
Even with the existence of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, which was set up to broaden the platform for development of people.
And I saw the trend going towards visual and performing arts, which is very important, because having been a student, a teacher, a principal, I understand the opportunities you need to create for every child to try and see where he could find his niche. Yeah. My school always had a concert, an annual concert at Bmobile, and
your school, the school you went to, or the school that you were principal of?
Grant Memorial Presbyterian.
Yeah, Grant Memorial. Yeah.
I had 3 years in St. Julian, but it's a very small school and very limited. But at Grant Memorial, within my first 2 years, I had a concert, and it became an annual event. So that, as I mentioned elsewhere too, patriotism must also, for example, not be seen as we love my country. But you love your country and you're beating a woman? You're people of the country? We are now on a trend, and we're looking for support to harshly print some bumper stickers that say, "Coward men beat women." We think the time has come for them to get a harsh message. Real men love women, coward men beat women. And when you're driving your car, you say, "Of course, but you might say in your mind." So it's more than just, going out there and supporting a cricket match or an event or so. Look at our diversity. Look at this last weekend going here. Could we not love this country? We have Baptists, we have Eid, and we have both of them, all of us.
Diwali and you know.
And in the midst of all
The
that,
rest of
NLC supports the question of the status and had no game because it was celebrating religious empire. So that our country offers us many things, many ways, you know.
Yeah. How would you respond to the notion that, to some extent, perhaps because of our ethnic and other kinds of diversity, these things cause issues among us, and that takes away from the extent to which we could become one nation, indivisible under God, somebody's statement?
I remember once having to represent my college at Teachers College at a debate. The topic was, be it resolved that complete racial integration is impossible. And our opponent went to tongue. Complete, that's complete, that's complete, and complete. Now, complete doesn't mean complete. Complete doesn't mean 100%. So when Guyana recently said, hey, we have no unemployment problem, we have unwillingly to be employed people. So 5% of the people who do well, I ain't working, I ain't one. So but coming back to the question of to me, the reeking problem of ethnicity and race, there is nothing I hate as race. Calling people, you know, by their name, that it looks as though he's a this or he's a that. No. That's not the kind of thing I support, you know. I grew up in a little village, Diamond called gem of a village for me. We wore each other clothes, we eat in the same plate, we drank from the same glass, we were just, you know, nothing came in our way. It was the worst of times and the best of times, as we say, because we lived such a beautiful life, you know. So that even today, having left Diamond 50 years, I am still there regularly visiting people and you know. But I have all kinds of Africans, Indians, who mentored me, you know, who scolded me, who corrected me, you know, who influenced me in the village. And we have to get away from this race thing. It is perhaps...
Because we have to put the interests of the nation above that and above other things. Yeah, let me just read particularly for the benefit of the people who are looking at the program. The feeling, this is a definition of patriotism, the feeling of love, devotion, and a sense of attachment to a country or state. This allotment can be a combination of, this attachment can be a combination of different feelings for things such as the language, one's homeland, and the ethnic, cultural, political, and judicial aspects, historical aspects. How does that fit in terms of how we define patriotism?
They said it's an all-round, complete kind of development we're looking at. You know, it cannot be part-time, it cannot be, as, you know, I remember I had a conflict with a prime minister, and I met them when I was saying, listen, what do you like about the prime minister? Although we have a bit of conflict right now. He said, it was Prime Minister Manning. He said, we have an election to fight, but when we finish, we have a country to build. And that to me is fantastic. Time now, in the midst of it, election to fight, but when you finish that, we have a country to build, and that could only be done together.
But does it not matter then, if that is the end, towards from the means to the end, sometimes things that are done and said and action that is carried out in the pursuit of winning the election cause frictions that sometimes never get healed?
Well, we know that only too well because, you know, every race, creed, bribery, corruption, ugly heads, when it comes to this kind of quote-unquote silly season.
Yeah. So what would you say, well, this organization is a couple of years old, right? What would you say you've seen between when it was established and what we're dealing now? And hopefully discussions such as these will create a greater platform for people to embrace or re-embrace I would say the urgency and the necessity for amped up and amplified patriotism in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I'm hoping that we can get more people on board, more sectors, not necessarily only to sponsor, but unions don't think they have an obligation to this. Churches must have that obligation, community groups must have that kind of obligation. We need to work together, because I have known that villages and so on always look upon their heroes from within their village, And if you improve your village at each level we put, then we'll have a greater aspiration of people saying, as a little boy, my aim was to play cricket. Once I could play cricket for the village, my hero was a big man who was making runs, But then, thank God for a school and a principal who came in and then exposed it. And I've always said, in my lifetime, the best thing happened in my country, beyond independence and Republican, of course, was the concept of the common entrance.
Yeah, the common entrance examination.
That was the early 60s, 1960, 61. Because prior to that, the school will send you, if they feel like the big shot, quote-unquote big shot, will call the principal of the secondary school, hey, my son is coming in September, my daughter is coming, no exam, nothing.
That is how it used to be?
Yeah. And we were beating them in class, but we can't afford, And I remember many, many years ago, I got a profile of a gentleman. He won college exhibition. He said, hey, me and nobody to send you to school, You had to go and he had a cut cane. But his ability was there. So these are the kind of things we need to do as we improve at all levels with a commitment, a deep sense of what we are doing, keeping, the positives in mind and staying away from I know it's a tall order to think we'll get racism off the radar, to think we'll get corruption off the radar. It is so subtle and so easy to do, and
and there's so many areas of activity among us that which we have this them and us approach to things. So we have it ethnically, we have it socially. So there are these discussions taking place about, people who could afford and those who can't, and in my estimation, these things continue to create gaps between us on the spectrum.
Yeah. Well, as much and as often as we can do these things, we need to, and try and get into our national psyche. We must get this yearning for improvement, this yearning for assessment, for objectivity, and keep fighting or advocating as necessary for what we see as the best interests of the country.
Yeah, just a day ago, I saw a story in the paper about a man who was involved in that area of the country's national security issues. A Mr. Best, who was with the National Intelligence Agency, and he'd been put on ice for a bit. He was saying to somebody, he turned up at a political meeting a couple of days ago. His picture appeared in the paper, and he was talking about being a patriot. The suggestion to me is that because of whatever activities he was involved in, he considered that to be performance of patriotism. And the suggestion I have is that he got into trouble with that by, in his view, trying to be a patriot for the country. He was arrested on 2 occasions and charged, and now he's put on ice from the intelligence agency in the country. And he's saying that I'm a patriot.
Well, I say we need to be alert to what's happening, be prepared to face it head on as much as we could, and be prepared to accept. And I thought we made mention earlier about the foyer of the airport.
Yes.
Do
right.
And
somebody's taking issue with the backgrounds, the pictures, and so on, suggesting that they should be one and they should be constant and permanent.
So Ellis Clark, and before him,
Justice Nur Hassan Ali.
Their pictures are still with a purely national colors background. Beyond Ellis Clark came President Nur Hassan Ali. Now his picture was also with those colors. But I see now that he, Max Richards, A.N.R. Robinson, Paula Mavick, Carla, they all have a blue background with a little bit of a national flag. Almost you could not find it.
Yeah, and just to mention it, in between the two of them, you had Mr. Anthony.
Well, I am trying to inquire, and that's why I said I expected maybe the media to inquire. Why have we changed? In 2010, the appointed Prime Minister has a picture installed in a yellow background. In 2013, thereabout, President Anthony Carmona changed his picture was the first with his new background in blue. And his explanation was that that's the color of the president's house. And I said, what is that? Yeah. You're not president's house?
Yes.
Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, well, I haven't seen the present one, but the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, also had his in the same way. And I am saying,
in the way that it should be, as opposed to what, so people are taking.
You are not Prime Minister of Cabinet.
Yeah.
You are not, and well, I don't know what has happened with Cabinet, but I cannot accept. We cannot accept that our national colors have been removed, no matter what color you put. Blue to me is babulous.
I think that is an issue that we should address, because that is in the interest of building up and ramping up this and fortifying, solidifying this.
You see, you can't let these little things go.
Yeah.
And I don't know who to find out from, So, but as I said, I expect the authorities to come out and say something, possibly after today.
All right, so it's been a pleasure talking with you, and you will continue to in this fight, and others, I imagine. Mr. Lennox Singh, coordinator of the Patriotic Movement of Trinidad and Tobago. This has been 10 Questions. Thanks for watching. I'm Andy Johnson. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and the treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive service,